loudest moment I ever heard at Citi Field. When Johan struck out David Freese, there was this animalistic scream. And so in 2005, I was working here in New York City, but I was working nights. So I never went to weeknight games. I DVR'd every freaking Met game. I would have to take the 7 train home, which was ironic. So I would try to avoid eye contact with people.
Because you can tell from their expressions whether they won or lost.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Get home, watch the game. So weekends became magic. I ended up quitting my job because of 2006. I ended up saying, I can't miss the playoff run because I got to do radio shows. If this is our rally cry, if this is our baby shark, if this is our rally monkey, then how can anyone hate it? I mean, I just want to win. I think we all feel the same way. We just want to see the Mets win. And if this is going to be our magic luck charm, good luck charm, then I love you, Grimace.
Hey, what's up? It's Vito Calisi, Jonathan Barrett. We're here with Evan Roberts, and you can get Evan Roberts' book, My Mets Bible, that's available everywhere you get your books right now, right?
That's right. Thank you.
Now, Evan, you, like us, lifelong Mets fan.
Unfortunately, yes.
But isn't this year fun?
This year has been fun for the last few weeks. I can't tell you April was fun. I can't tell you being 0-5 was fun.
But isn't that the whole point of being a Mets fan? As bad as some days are, when the team is good, it feels so much better.
Yes, I'll tell you, like, if you ask me right now, and I'm too young to have witnessed 86, so 86 is out, right? So all my years are either losing in the World Series or not making the playoffs, essentially. My most fun season as a fan is 2015, and a part of it is what you hit on, that you had the crazy ups and downs from that season, and ultimately we got the up of winning the pennant and going to the World Series. So I don't know how this script ends. If you're telling me we're going to the World Series, then yes, this season's amazing. But there's been a lot of up and down so far. That's for sure.
It's a likable team, though, and I think you can agree with that. The likability of the team. Like a Jose Iglesias coming in halfway and bringing the energy that he's brought, and we've seen Christian Scott, who's been a homegrown arm, and Luis Severino, his resurgence that people didn't really expect. So we talk about that a lot in the podcast as well, that the fans have really taken to this team, I think, and want to see this team win. Obviously, every year you want to see the team win. But it feels like there's a special connection right now between the Mets and the fans. I mean, when Edwin Diaz came back from the injured list, I don't know if you were here that night against the Marlins.
Yes.
That was a special moment. When he came out of the bullpen.
That was one of the most important moments of the season. And it's crazy. We'll see where it all goes, but if it does go somewhere special, we're all going to try to find the moment where things turned, or the moment where you're like, okay, things are happening. And I think Edwin Diaz coming back and being effective, and the Mets coming back and winning that finale against the Marlins was monumental. But yeah, I think what has made this team likable is the fact that we as humans get beat down sometimes, and you like a good comeback story.
Sure.
And think about it. The offseason, we were beat down. A lot of Met fans were not happy about this offseason. I actually wasn't one of them. I understood the offseason, but I also understand that there were a lot of Met fans saying, why aren't we signing this guy? Why aren't we doing this? And the expectations were lowered. Then they get off to a bad start. Then they respond. And I think that's a part of the likability, that this team has seen the depths of a season hell, being 11 games under 500, starting the year 0-5, being punked by Rhys Hoskins, all the negatives you can come up with. And now we've seen this team fight back. And I think that adds to the likability you talk about.
I mean, when you think about Mets history and really the prominent seasons and the successful ones, they've all had their warts except for 86. I mean, 86, they won 108 games, and they almost didn't win the World Series, but 69, you need the black hat situation, and then they make the run late. 73, it was a last place team late in the season. 2000, they fired the hitting coach. Bobby V was on the hot seat at a point. That season wasn't going very well for a little bit there. 2015, we talked about. So it feels like you can't have a great Mets season without not a little bit of turbulence.
I know 2016 was one game, but that didn't think that was happening halfway through the year.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that team had a rebound as well.
And then somehow they get the home field advantage in the playoff game when halfway through the season it felt like it was over.
You know what's funny about what you're saying? As you're making that point, I'm thinking you're right. Like, every successful Mets season has faced big adversity except for one. And that season ended badly, 2006. 2006 was too easy.
Yep.
Think about it. The 2006 Mets never got punched in the face until they did get punched in the face, and it ended badly in Game 7. But all those other great seasons, or good seasons, however you want to define it, because I know they didn't win the World Series, 99, 2000, 2015. You bring up 2016, which is still a playoff year.
Yeah.
They faced that adversity and ultimately had some success.
You brought up 2006. Yankees are here tonight, game 1 of the Subway Series. So what was a tougher year for you as a Met fan? Which is the more painful one, 06 or 2000?
Oh, jeez.
That's a good one, right?
It's good. I think the tiebreaker on it is when the Mets lost in 2000, I had to go to high school the next day.
Okay. What grade?
And
What grade were you in
That year, I was I was actually just entering my senior year.
That's the worst.
Okay, so
That's the
senior year of
worst.
high school.
But you were in high school in Long Island, right?
I did. 85% Yankee fans.
That's crazy because I feel like it's the one place that's usually the haven for Mets
You know
fans.
why though? You got to remember the time period.
Well, yeah, I mean you have
Jeter. That was the call for.
It's the Yankee dynasty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
look, if I go back to that same high school, I'm an alum of Lawrence High School. I go back now, I don't know what that split is. Maybe it's closer to 50-50. I don't know. But we are talking about the height of the New York Yankees. So look, 2006 was brutal. I was also at a different part of my life. Like after they lost Game 7, I went on WFAN.
Yeah,
a few
you already
hours
had the
later.
show with Joe, right? At that
No,
point?
I was doing overnights at the time.
Oh, okay. I thought you and Joe already had
We started a few months later,
Got
so
it,
it was very
okay.
close. But
Okay.
like now I'm talking about it on the radio, which is therapeutic. In 2000, I'm going into high school and getting made fun of. You loser Met fan, how does it taste? Oh. So I
God.
think, look, they're both painful. But to me, to answer the question, it's 2000 just because you had to deal with your brothers and sisters, and they were all arrogant and very
can
tough
say
to
it.
deal with.
Yeah.
2009, I was like one of 5 kids in school on the parade day. Like everybody, even kids who didn't watch baseball, were like, "I'm going to the parade just like because everybody's going," and I was like, "There's no way I'm gonna look at that travesty, that gross mutant zoo."
So that,
Downtown.
So that brings up another good question.
Yeah.
In 2009, who were you rooting for?
The Philadelphia Phillies.
Me too. No
Reluctantly.
brainer. No brainer for me.
It was a no-brainer, but I wasn't doing it with a smile on my face.
Sure.
Like it was one of those you got to hold your noses. Sometimes we do that in elections. We're like, all right, I'm gonna hold my nose and vote for this person. That was basically 2009.
Yeah.
That was what the World Series was, but it was tough, man, because that Philly team. Let's not forget
that's the
who
thing.
they were.
It was right after 07 and 08.
Yeah.
Had that not been the case, because the Mets and Phillies for a while, before 07, 08, there was really no rivalry at all.
Right.
They never competed for a spot
Outside
in
of
the playoffs.
like Jimmy Rollins MVP or the Cole Hamels.
Well, that was that
Cole
time.
Hamel was before 09 or was before 08?
No, that was 07, 08. I'm
Same
talking
era.
like
Yeah.
in 03, 04.
Yeah.
There was never competition.
It
The
would-
Phillies stunk forever and the Mets stunk for.
Yeah.
Though I will tell you, and I don't know if you guys felt this way, I thought 99 was more difficult to deal with because the Mets had just lost to Atlanta in the National League Championship Series, and my hatred was running so deep for the Braves, and the Yankees are in the middle of the dynasty. So as bad as 09 was in picking a side between the Yankees and the Phillies, I picked one. I gave you the answer. It's the Phillies. In 99, I couldn't watch the World Series. It was unwatchable as a Met fan.
So we're like the next generation after you. So for us, and we've talked about this a lot. We even had the chance to ask David Wright about it. For
Yes,
us,
which is why I was wondering what your take was.
we lean heavy hating the Phillies. Like that's our Mets rival. That's the one that's caused us the most pain, even with like early childhood being that Braves team. But the Phillies for us is that team that's like just because 07 and 08 were so rough. Now,
Well, not for me. No.
Wait,
For
I
me,
thought
it's
you
the
said-
Yankees. No.
Oh no, but I'm talking about NL East rival specifically.
Oh, yeah.
Our NL East rival is Phillies. We don't go Braves like Evan. Like you go Braves, right?
You know what's funny? So the real test of this is, well, what I do in the playoffs when they played each other. And ultimately, I rooted for the Braves.
Me too.
So as much as I dislike the Braves, it's more the late 90s. It's more 1999, especially after losing an NLCS, and then the World Series is right after. But when I'm forced to pick a side between Philadelphia and Atlanta, again, reluctantly, holding my nose, I pick the Braves. And I think part of it's similar. It's the proximity. Philly fans are, I don't want to say all around us, but they're very close. You drive a few miles south and they're everywhere.
They
so
show
I
up
think
here.
They certainly do. I think the tiebreaker is the fans.
Also, like the Braves had just won.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing.
The Braves
like-
had just won, so
Yeah, it
I
was
was like,
solidified.
if they win again, I really don't give a. Like,
yeah. Well,
sorry, I
you-
cursed. But one last either or.
Yeah.
07 or 08, which is the harder one.
So,
And were you there for the last game?
oh,
of 08?
yes, I was there. Unfortunately.
I stood at the gate. I will never forget leaving the stadium. I stood at the gate, and my friend had to drag me out because I was like, I can't leave this ballpark feeling this way.
That's why, look, 2007 was a choke job. 2008 was they lost the pennant race. I think we need to look and remember the differences. The Mets lost a general pennant race in 2008. It sucked. It was terrible. There was nothing that unique about it in terms of the baseball. 2007 was a choke job. It's one of the greatest choke jobs in the history of baseball. So that baseball aspect is worse. But to me, what made 2008 worse was two things. The closing of Shea Stadium, which is obvious. The fact that, like, I'm crying that the building is closing, like you. And the idea of this couldn't have happened again. Like, there's something surreal about everything. The same opponent, the same way the series got laid out with losing on a Friday, winning on an incredible pitching performance on a Saturday, and then losing and ending your season on a Sunday. So I think pound for pound, '08 is worse just because of the emotion of, I can't believe this is happening again, and the closing of Shea Stadium. But if you take that aside and just look at the baseball, 2007 is one of the worst collapses in the history of the sport. And I still can't believe they did that.
Sports in general, I mean, it's hard to hard to compare it to anything.
Well, it's, Met fans 4 weeks ago were saying, oh, season's over. And I'm like, we saw 7-17. There's like 100 games left to go here. There's a lot of time.
That's the hope that we have.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. I will say, in '08, I think the '08 team, pound for pound, was a little bit better. Like Carlos Delgado had that resurgence.
Yeah.
He was kind of a zero in '07, especially the second half of that season. He killed them in a way. In '08, he came back. It looked like he was done. I mean, I know he had the hip issue and it ultimately ended his career, but he was a monster down the stretch for that team. They did kind of collapse, by the way. They were like 3.5 up with, I think, 10 games to go or something like that. It was a mini collapse.
Yeah, okay.
Mini collapse.
If you want to go mini collapse, like they lost, to me, that was a regular pennant race. Like if you put that up against any other pennant races in the history of baseball, you'd say, yeah, it was a race. They had a lead. They had a chance to win it, but they didn't. 2007 is still one of those things where you look back at some of those losses in September and say, if you flip any of those games, you never know what happens because look what goes on in the postseason. I mean, you just don't know what kind of run it's going to turn into. And it's just so devastating because when I left Shea Stadium in '06 after they lost Game 7, there's a part of me that said, we'll be back. And it was a lesson. Trust me, I've learned that lesson in all sorts of sports now where I know we won't be back. And I know this is basketball, but when the Nets lost Game 7 of the Bucks a few years ago, everyone told me, you'll be back. You've got 3 superstars. You'll be back. And I said, no, let me tell you something. I've learned from the 2006 Mets. Facts may be on your side. You may look at the talent on your side. You don't know if you're going to be back. And unfortunately, I wasn't back with that team either.
Well, look at '86. Look at 2015. 2015, and the reason 2015 was so fun, it's like you said, I went into that season. I had a Sunday plan that season, and I bought it with my friends. And I said, it's going to be a fun year. Who knows what happens? Maybe there'll be a first playoff round exit. Who knows? It would be fun to see that. And then what it turned to was incredible because it seemed like that was just the beginning of the future.
That's the hope.
And then, you've seen that with, and like you said, you see that with many teams.
But that's why, like, let's say this Met team, continues to surprise us and they're in the NLCS. I can promise you this. I don't know how you guys are going to feel. I'm never going to say, well, gee golly, we didn't expect this. This is fun. No, I'm going to say this is an opportunity. And if we don't take advantage of it, it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get another crack at it. So that's one thing I've learned as a sports fan. I know right now we'd all sign for the NLCS. That's obvious. But if we get there, my attitude's going to be, you better seal the deal, man.
So are you saying that after Game 6, Rangers-Panthers, I go upstairs to my bed, 20 minutes later, I'm texting my friends like, you know what? Laughs a beast, Shesterkin, we'll be back next year. It's all good. Am I wrong? Is my thinking incorrect there?
I would be on high alert. You may not be wrong, but I would not have the confidence
See,
that I'll be back.
Your Nets had Kyrie. That was the thing. That was the poison pill in the whole soup there. He's a volatile guy. That's the problem.
No,
and Harden, like James Harden was also...
the poison pill was Giannis Antetokounmpo falling on Kyrie Irving's ankle. If he doesn't fall on his ankle, they win the series, they win a title. Who cares if they break up? I would have been at a parade with 45 other people.
Down Atlantic Ave, right? Or Canyon of Heroes. What do you think? Atlantic Avenue.
Brooklyn, New York.
The team that got away, Evan, was the 2019 Mets. That was the one that got away.
You know what's funny about that? You're kind of right. Think about how many games they blew that year. When I think of 2019, like if you said 2019, what comes into your mind? I think of that drop pop-up in San Francisco at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I think of the collapse.
Chris Mazza pitched that night, right? I think Chris Mazza gave it up.
Chris Mazza. Yep. I think of the collapse against the Nationals in September when Kurt Suzuki had a home run.
The 10-4
if they
game.
have a few of those games go the right way, they're in the wild card. Maybe not the Brewers or the Nationals. And who knows? Maybe we're beating the Astros in the World Series.
And they have the buzzsaw rotation with DeGrom having an all-time season and Zach Wheeler, number 2, who had really he had arrived at that point. He was full there. And it was a great offense, too. You look at like weighted runs created plus all time. That was one of the better offenses in Mets history.
Underrated Met team. And I think when Todd Frazier hit that home run and Michael Conforto got the game winner against Washington on that Friday night, sold out, felt like a playoff game. I remember leaving that building that night saying, we're going all the way. And obviously just too many kicking the balls losses killed us that season. Yeah. So 2019 is anytime I hear the year 2019, I get like, because it was a year in which they had a lot of opportunities.
I have another question for Evan. The loudest moment you've ever heard at Citi Field?
The loudest moment I ever heard at Citi Field. So a part of me thinks, even though it wasn't sold out, when Johan pitched the no-hitter. And I know that's kind of like a weird, like, how could it be the Loudest when there were 30,000 people there? It was not a sellout.
Not even.
But I think that it was probably last
No,
year.
not even.
We were both there.
It was a small crowd, but you got to admit, like, when it happened,
Yeah.
when Johan struck out David Freese, there was this animalistic scream of, I can't believe what happened. But what's funny is I try to think about, like, okay, what's the answer for a sellout? All that greatness from 2015 happened on the road. Like, Game 5 against the Dodgers, road. The sweep of the Chicago Cubs, road. So I don't know. Maybe it's when Matt Harvey came out for the 9th inning in Game 5. And I was against it. I was the one guy in the building who didn't like it. And everyone's chanting, Harvey, Harvey. And I'm telling my wife and my dad, I don't like this at all. So that's certainly up there. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Maybe even that Todd Frazier home run in 2019.
That was a good one. The
It was
one
up there.
one that we talked about with Daniel Murphy was the Sunday night baseball game. So they had traded for Cespedes on Friday. That was the Walker
Yes.
walk-off.
That's a good one.
And then they win on Saturday. Duda has a big go-ahead hit
Yep.
in the 8th. And then Sunday night, they go back to back to back against Jordan Zimmerman.
Jordan Zimmerman, right? Yeah.
And that was, you talk about, like, we've got this, we're winning this. That was the moment where, I mean, the Mets took off. They went to Miami right after that, swept the Marlins, and they hit 8 homers in Philly. Like, that was the moment of that season where it was like, shit, this is ours.
I was sitting in 507, and I will never forget. Like, it was the first time that I felt Citi move the way Shea used to move, where, like, I was like, holy shit. This
City
team
was
is going
getting
on
its
a run.
soul because for a few years it's like this beautiful new building, but it didn't have the soul of Shea Stadium. And I think it started to get it with Johan's no-hitter. And then obviously all of those memories from 2015 really gave it that personality. And now it feels like a home because for a while it didn't feel like a home.
Yeah.
It was a nice stadium and all, but it was like, it ain't Shea.
Well, they were getting the walls figured out for a while.
Yeah, right.
2012 was actually a weirdly favorite year of mine because it just had so many fun things, like the no-hitter.
Yeah.
Ari Dickey's 20-year win. Like,
Ike Davis had a huge year that year in 2012.
I went to like 30 games that year, and it's just like, it's weird because there's Met seasons where like the team doesn't perform as well as you'd want, but like I look back on 2012 with fondness.
This is what being a Met
But
fan
you
is
know
all
what?
about, reminiscing. We got Grimace.
Let's talk about Grimace. What do you think about the whole Grimace thing?
Hey, listen, man, I love anything that sparks the Mets. So if this is going to be our rally cry, if that Grimace doll is going to be held, I can hold it. Oh
can
my
hold
God,
Grimace.
what an honor! If I'm going to sit at Citi Field
Is that
on
a
this
banana
run,
on his head, like a banana hat? What is
it
that?
kind of looks like that. Yeah, got to put a Met hat on him.
I had him sign the ball while he was
Oh
here. too.
wow! And it actually looks like Grimace.
No, he signed it legitimately. I have a video of him signing it.
Not
So-
easy to do with these kinds of hands.
No, he dropped the ball.
If this is our rally cry, if this is our baby shark, if this is our rally monkey, then how can anyone hate it? I mean, I just want to win. I think we all feel the same way. We just want to see the Mets win. And if this is going to be our magic luck charm, good luck charm, then I love you, Grimace.
You're hanging him from the rafters right now, right?
Right now, well, it fell. It didn't last very
no.
long.
Who hung it? Who did the
I
shoddy
did.
job? That was you?
It was me. I hung
Okay.
like a bootleg Grimace outfit from our studio, and it lasted about 6 hours.
It still looked better than the one that Sal apologized to the other day. The one Sal apologized to the other day looked like he bought it off of the show. It looks like he built it himself.
Yeah. I mean,
Times
these
Square,
Grimace
Times
outfits-
Square Grimace.
These Grimace outfits are very tough to find, let's be honest.
Especially now, hot commodity.
Yes.
I want to talk about the book a little bit. I know Vito mentioned it at the start. First of all, great book. Amazing idea to write your memories about all the games that you've scored throughout the years. And I was looking through, and there are some games that, you're a big Met fan. You remember a lot of these fondly. So just wanted to talk about some of them and your memories from them. The first one I want to talk about, a regular season game that I don't think a lot of Met fans remember because it came in a season that didn't have many highs,
Right.
I'd say. It was the beginning of the David Wright, Jose Reyes era, and that was 05. June 11th, 2005 against the Angels.
Yes.
The Marlon Anderson pinch hit inside the park home run. I believe it was Steve Finley in the outfield who kicked the ball away.
Yeah, who finds a way to be a part of Met history.
Yes,
because remember
Todd Pratt, of course.
he's the center fielder,
Yes.
right? Who had the weird leap on the Todd Pratt
Right.
home run. Yeah,
And what I remember most about that game was Brendan Donnelly was pitching when Cliff Floyd hit the walk-off home run.
Yes.
And if you remember, Cliff Floyd, 2 pitches before he actually hit the walk-off, yanked one foul.
Yes.
And it was a 3-2 count. It was a long at-bat, if I recall correctly.
was.
And I remember I was like, I think I was in 8th grade or something like that. I was ending 8th grade. And Floyd hits that ball. I'm like, yes! And then, shit, that was the moment. It's gone. And then a couple pitches later, he gets the job done.
actually does it, yeah.
And he had a great year that year, Cliff Floyd.
Yes.
That was his best Met season. And also, if you recall, there were rumors that they were talking to Baltimore before that season had begun about trading him for Sammy Sosa. Apparently, that almost happened. Omar
Right.
Minaya almost pulled the trigger on that his first year as Mets GM. and didn't. And then Cliff Floyd, I think, had 32 home runs that year, had an absolutely great year. But that game, to me, I'll never forget that ball game. So what were your memories from that night?
The biggest memory I had is I was very spoiled in that when I was in high school and I was in middle school, me and my dad went to like every game. Because my dad was obsessive. Even before I was a baseball fan, he went to like 70 Met games a season.
That's a lot.
So this is before I was even really a thing. And then he got me involved. He got me hooked, and I would join him all the time. And so in 2001, I moved away. And for about 3 or 4 years, going to Met games was special, for like most people, because I wasn't going to 70 games a year. And so in 2005, I was working here in New York City, but I was working nights. So I never went to weeknight games. I DVR'd every freaking Met game. I would have to take the 7 train home, which was ironic. So I would try to avoid eye contact with people.
Because you could tell from their expressions whether they won or lost.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Get home, watch the game. So weekends became magic. Like if there was a game on a Saturday and a Sunday, those were my games. And I remember that being a Saturday night. It was raining, and I'm thinking, oh, they can't rain this game out. You freaking kidding me? So what jumped out at me is it was special. I was there with my dad, like the old days. I wasn't able to go to as many games. And I just remember that game being just pound for pound an awesome baseball game. And you gave a lot of the reasons why. Marlon Anderson hitting a game-tying inside the park home run against K-Rod. Like, what the hell? Cliff Floyd in that classic at-bat. It was just a great game, which is why I wanted to include it. And I also realized that moment, that Cliff Floyd home run has actually haunted me. Because when he came up a year later in the NLCS as a pinch hitter, that vision was in my head. Even though my brain said, we got a bunt here. Like, why are we sending Cliff Floyd up? We should be laying down a bunt.
Are you sending up Tom Glavine in that situation?
I would have sent up Tom Glavine.
Okay.
Because Tom Glavine, say what you want about him, was an excellent bunter.
Yeah.
Now, if you play it out, and I don't want to, the inning probably ends the same way. If you just think about the way
you're giving away an out.
You're giving away an out.
Yeah.
But I also was deathly afraid that if Cliff hit the ball on the ground, it's a double play.
He couldn't run at that
point. Could not move.
Yeah.
But I kept having the vision of that laser beam home run he hit off Brendan Donnelly from a year earlier. But pound for pound, that was just a great regular season game. And that's a sign of a great game. That, here it is. How many years later? 20 years later? 19 years later?
19 years. Oh, man, I'm old.
We still remember it.
I think it was May 19th, 06. Yankees Mets at Chase Stadium. Randy Johnson against Jeremy Gonzalez. Were you at that game?
Was that the Dae-Sung Koo
game?
game?
No, that was 05.
05, okay.
That was 05. This is the next year when the Mets are here.
Yeah.
The Yankees score 4 in the first inning. Jeremy Gonzalez, may his soul rest in peace, just couldn't miss any bats at all. Mets come back to hit bottom one. Carlos Beltran, 3-run home run. Mets right back in the game. They tie the game. Kaz Matsui has a game-tying single. And this is the David Wright over Johnny Damon's head game.
Yes.
That was an all-time classic Mets regular season game for a 32-year-old.
Yes, that was one of those rare games couldn't go to.
Really? You weren't there?
I was working nights.
Oh,
that was a period of time. By the way, I ended up, and I explained this in my book, I ended up quitting my job because of 2006. I ended up saying, I can't miss the playoff run because I got to do radio shows. I was doing a radio show from 6 to 10 at night on Sirius. And so I was never able to go to weeknight games, nor was I able to watch them live. That's why I would DVR all these games. I was lucky I was on jury duty for the Carlos Beltran home run off Ryan Madsen.
By the way, you get jury duty a lot, sounds like.
Yeah, I know.
He was just on jury duty last week.
That was the other time I was on jury duty. That time benefited me, though, because I literally got to a Met classic regular season game during the week I wouldn't have gone to.
16 innings, right?
The 16-inning game. I happened to be there, but that game was a Friday night, if I'm not mistaken. And Howie Rose had one of the greatest calls. That was now put that in your book.
Yeah.
After David Wright got the game winner.
Yep.
Yes.
The next day was a disaster, by the way.
You know what's so funny about the Subway Series? And I've been saying this on the air, but this is a perfect example of it. I could tell you everything that happened in 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001. After the World Series, so really 2000, they all kind of run together. Like there are certain ones I remember, like the big ones.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about it recently without doing any research to jog my memory, just my memory, without anything to help it. I forget so much over the last 15 years, and I think it all runs together because they play every year. It's 4 or 6 games. It used to be 6 games. And so like you bring up a memory, I'll eventually remember it, but it doesn't like jump out the way every game of 97, 98, 99, and 2000 does. And I don't know the reason. Maybe it's the World Series ruined it for me. Maybe it's because it's just so much. I don't know the reason, but
I either only remember the ones I was at or the really good ones are bad. Anything in between, no. Like I remember the game where Mariano, it's the only time he ever didn't What
He
was the
walked
stat?
to the bases loaded?
No, it was the only time he
Oh,
ever,
he didn't record it out.
He didn't record it
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
It's
that
the
was
only time in his whole
2013, the
career.
Harvey
Yes,
game.
yeah.
Yes.
And that game, it got like delayed 2 hours or
Yeah.
something. My friend offered me tickets at 7. I was like, I'm not going to make it. And then the delay, so I was able to go. But so like it's the same thing. It's like they happen every year. Like you remember the Lindor 3-home run game,
Right,
but like
right.
you remember the 9/11 anniversary game, but like I don't remember what happened.
Were you there on June 12, 2009?
June 12th, 2009, the Luis Castillo game?
Yes.
I was there.
You were
and
there?
that was, it's in the book, and I feel very bad about something. I went with a buddy of mine who's a diehard Yankee fan, my best friend in the world. Grew up as a Yankee fan. I'm a Met fan. It was his tickets. He had season tickets at the time. He took me. And the deal was I was going to drive him home after the game. I was so devastated and in such like a comatose state after Luis Castillo dropped that ball. I looked at him and said, "You're going to find your own way home tonight."
Oh my God.
And
Is that still a friend?
thank God he is. I apologized to him formally on the radio a couple of years ago.
That's cool.
I've written about it in the book. He makes fun of me about it, but
That's wild.
dude. What is it wild though?
No, I punched the
I mean,
whole.
think about it.
I
Here's the
punched
thing,
a hole
though,
through
for
my
both
door.
of you, the season was over at that point.
I don't care. That sucked.
What's the embarrassment of it being the Subway Series and the way, like that ending being
Yeah, because
so.
as bad as the team is, that win does feel good. Like 21, the Lindor
guess.
3-home run felt really
The
good.
Mets won the next day. Omir Santos homered at the stadium.
Fernando Nieve made the start. I don't know why I remember that
Fernando
one.
Nieve.
I think that what really added it to me is that about 2 weeks earlier, I was in LA with Beningo. We did a midday show trip to Los Angeles, and we were in there in person seeing Ryan Church miss third base. And so I think to witness that
You were
live,
there?
we were there.
That was Emmanuel brought the infield in, right?
Yes.
And
Jeremy Reed.
Jeremy Reed.
Yeah. I was so devastated off of that loss that I think that added to the Castillo game because to me,
Yeah.
I just experienced what I thought was pound for pound one of the worst regular season losses you could have. And now I'm sitting there and what I kept repeating out loud was, they did it again. They did it again.
Not
They
like
did
that.
It again.
I'd never done that before.
No, I know.
I was at my senior prom that night. And this is before iPhones, really.
Right.
I guess it had just come out, but I remember I'm on the dance floor with my date. My friend's like, "Hey, 2 outs. Mets are about to beat the Yankees. We're going to Wildwood, New Jersey for the weekend. We're going to have a great time." And then he comes back up to me 5 minutes later. He goes, it was almost like, he had to tell the president some bad news. He
Right.
taps me on the shoulder, pulls me aside. He goes, "Castillo just dropped the ball. The Mets lost." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
and that
So,
doesn't even do it justice. Like,
No.
I'm sure hearing that is not the same as like watching
seeing it. Yeah.
So
that was.
I want to ask you a question about the book. So I scorekeep as well. What are some tips you have for people just getting into scorekeeping? Because like I feel like it's intimidating to a lot of people. And then once you start doing it, it's actually pretty easy and it's relaxing, I find.
Yeah, I think the tip I'd give is keep it simple. Like my scorecard is, I'm crazy, so I do balls and strikes. I'm putting the direction of where the ball was hit. But I think you start off very simple. Each position has a number, 4-3 if it's a ground ball to second, strike out, like very basic. And what I've learned is that forget about keeping you in the game because I love baseball. I don't need it to keep me in the game, but it's so easy to refer back to something. Baseball is a game in which a lot of things happen. What was the count in my case because I have the count? What did he do an inning earlier? How many times have they had runners in scoring position? So it's such a great frame of reference when I'm watching any kind of baseball game. And now, like, I score 99.8% of the Met games I watch. It very rarely.
Even at home, like road games, you're
Even
scoring?
at home.
Oh, wow.
The only times I don't score is when we're live on the air during a game. Obviously, I'm going to put the show first. But outside of that, like, it's just about every single game.
It feels really cool too when you're like keeping score and then people around you notice and then they start asking you for like, they're like, "Oh, wait, what are his last 2 appearances?" You're like, "Oh, like that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Let me just look at my records."
You become the information guy. Yes.
And then
yes.
are you a pen or pencil?
Oh, pen.
You have pen?
Pen.
Yeah,
1000%.
dude.
Yeah.
What do you mean, yeah, dude?
I use different colored pens.
Oh, really?
And every time there's a pitching change, I change the color.
Wow. Keith Hernandez does something.
Yeah, he
like
does
that, right?
highlighters. He's a highlighter, different color highlighters.
So I have I have a green pen for the start of the
Oh,
game.
wow.
I have a red pen that I use for the hopeful closer.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to go to a purple. And then I think I go orange. I go green, orange, yellow for starter, reliever.
I'll tell you,
and-
giving me some ideas.
Dude,
Dude, I've been
it's-
scoring for 30 years. Now I may have to change things.
Oh, dude, you got
it's
another
nice,
book coming
'cause
out now. Thanks to
then
Vito.
you look in and you're like, even like just at a glance, you
That's
know
pretty
even more
good.
of the game. And then it makes it easier when you're putting totals at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Where did the idea from the book come from? Was it Craig?
It kind of was, because we're on the air, and at some point he said, you should make it a coffee table book.
Was he needling you when he said that at first?
100%. Yeah. It's not. He was busting my balls. It was one of those things where it was probably not a real idea. It was more like, I'm going to make fun of Evan, and this will be fun for 5 minutes. And I love the idea of the coffee table book. Like, my initial idea was, I'm not going to write anything. I'm just going to publish scorecards, and that's it. And then when I went to my agent and said, hey, do you think this is like a real idea? And he went to book companies. They actually liked it, but more in terms of me writing about things. And I found that to be therapeutic, because what I did is I wrote about, my emotions during the game, but it also ended up telling the story of my life, because a lot of these games I'm a teenager. Some of these games I'm a kid. Some of these games I'm doing midday shows with Beningo. Some of these days I'm talking about my son being at the game. So it really is sort of a life story through the Mets.
That's so neat. So we talked about Craig, and you mentioned Beningo. I want to talk a little bit about your career path, especially your 3 partners you've had on the Fan. All so different.
Yes.
I was listening to Howie last night after you guys signed off, and he was talking about Joe from Saddle River.
Yeah.
Joe is just as blue-collar grassroots of a sports fan as it gets. Craig, a very different kind of partner, a little bit more entertainment, I'd say, than sports. And now you're with Tiki, a New York sports legend, who knows football, of course, forward and back, but football isn't on the calendar all year long, and there's other sports that we want to talk about here. So how interesting is it to you to have worked with 3 such different guys, really?
Wow, it's been, you nailed it. Like, you could not, in a laboratory, come up with 3 more different, unique personalities, but it's always about perspective. So with Joe, it was my fellow Met and Jet fan. And there's a good to that. There's also the negative of,
the Yankee fan doesn't want to listen to
what
you guys.
about the Yankee fan? What about the Giant fan? We always do our best to be fair about it.
Yeah.
But, there's always something missing. So it was a great bond. It was almost like father-son talking about sports. And it was a great run, and we had a lot of fun doing it. With Craig, completely different. It was about entertainment. It was Craig's the wild, crazy guy. I'm the sports geek. And look, I give him a lot of credit, man, because he said to me before we started, he's like, I'm going to watch so much sports because I'm going to try to debate you.
You told him no.
And I said, no. To doing the show with him?
No. You said don't do that because, am I right? You told him you?
Well, I told him be you, and he told me be me. But yeah, watch sports and try to debate me, but it's not going to go well for you.
Oh, okay.
So he would every once in a while, but it was a fun dynamic. It was a dynamic of, it was a wild, crazy show, and you never know what would happen. With Tiki, the value, and there's so much. You mentioned the football knowledge he brings, which is just unmatched.
Yeah.
But he watches so much of everything else now, which is impressive, and has learned so much. But he also, even when we're talking about baseball, has a perspective that I could never come close to, which is being the athlete in the room. Like when the Mets had the team meeting, and I'm like, all right, bro, does this make any difference? Like, he's got the perspective, even if it's a different sport, of what happens in those team meetings. And he told a great story about how, the Giants would sit in a sauna, and in that room, they would be honest with each other. Well, here's what you're doing wrong. I think he called it the hot box or something like that. So it's so interesting to get that perspective that you can't get. As I didn't play. What level of sports did I play? I played till, basically middle school, and then they told me you suck. So it brings such a very, very different perspective. And look, I love doing the show with all 3. When anyone asks me, pick your favorite, it's like picking between sons.
I was never going to do that.
It's all different. I'm preemptively getting you not to, but it's just so different. And there are some days in which you wake up and you're like, this is the greatest thing to do with this guy. And then you're like, oh, but it was the greatest thing to do with that guy. They were all incredibly fun shows. And now I just enjoy working with Tiki because every day you learn something different. We're still in that stage of getting to know each other. We haven't even done a full year together, which is amazing to think about.
So was it hard? Because obviously when you're with Craig is the more out there character. And then you go to do the show with Tiki. And then that kind of spot is now on you.
Yeah.
So what was that adjustment like?
It felt easy. I think sometimes you see who you're working with, and you never change who you are. I'll tell anybody, I'm the same person I was with Joe. I just may be saying things I wasn't saying on the radio with Joe. I'm the same guy. It's just that sometimes your personality comes out differently based on who you're working with and really the goal of the show. Sports talk radio has become more entertainment than it used to be.
Yeah.
I think Howie Rose did a great job of explaining that when he was on yesterday, that Howie and FAN in the early days was information.
Yeah.
We put on FAN for information. And nowadays in 2024, you get your information instantly. We're no longer the beacon of just information. We're the beacon of entertainment and the beacon of opinion and the beacon of talking to you about what you think about what's going on. So, I look back at the last 17 years because it's crazy. I've been on the station full time for 17 years, but it's different. Like times have changed, and based on that and based on who you're working with, it's just sometimes it's a different goal.
I really think also, the partnerships that you guys have and the fandoms that they stick together. Like when you and Keith McPherson are on together, you guys go head to head when it comes to baseball, but you guys put us all to sleep when you talk about the Brooklyn Nets. Or like, with Sean, I'm a big fan of Sean Marash.
Yes.
When the Rangers were in the playoffs, I remember the day after they beat Carolina, I had landed in California and I took my phone out right when I touched down. Odyssey app. I wanted to hear what Sean had to say. So I agree with you. Sean is the voice of the young Ranger fan, by the way.
That's right.
Sean, I 100% agree. But then, the Rangers get eliminated and you were out on jury duty last week and it's Tiki and Sean. I'm on the beach and they're talking about the Yankees. And I'm just like, I can't listen to this shit. I can't listen. I have no interest in this. So it's just funny how it goes because when JJ was on the fan also, big Yankee guy. When Steve Somers was on the fan, big Met guy. And the combination and the way it all works, it's intriguing because everyone in New York wants to have their team talked about, put their opinion out there.
Listen, man, one of the toughest things, and I am not perfect at it, but I try every day, is I strive when I'm talking about the teams I don't root for to make people care about what I'm saying. And I try to do that by being as fair as I possibly can. Now, am I perfect at that? Not really.
Were you fair to the Rangers?
Was I fair to the Rangers?
Were you being fair?
I think when
you were
was I not
openly
fair?
rooting against the Rangers.
But
you don't openly root against the Yankees.
There's a difference. There's a couple of things there. Number one, there's a difference between openly rooting against somebody and talking about them fairly. Now, with the Knicks, I will always openly root against the Knicks. I believe everything I've said about the Knicks this season, go back, I think I was fair. I think I was pretty accurate.
You try to put the kibosh on the Knicks a little bit now.
But that's different. That's your own mental, gymnastics. You're trying to jinx them. I said the Rangers were going to win the Stanley Cup. I said that.
I didn't like it.
By the way, I said that because I genuinely believed it.
Well,
I was wrong.
2 wins away would have happened.
Could have happened.
Yeah.
But some may be listening and saying, oh, Evan's only saying that because he wants the Rangers to lose. Then with the Knicks, I'm like, you're going to lose to Philadelphia. I genuinely believe that. I was wrong. But do you see the difference? In one breath, I'm saying this team's winning it all, this team's getting knocked out. And in both avenues,
you still can't win.
Want to believe, well, he's just saying it for this reason. No, I'm saying it because I believe it. But I think you can do two things at once, which is be honest about your fandom, which I am, and also try to be fair about talking about them. But to your point, when we put this new show together, I thought it was important to have voices that represent all of those teams because you're right. I can only do so much. I totally respect the Ranger fans saying, F you, Evan. You hate them. Doesn't matter what you say. So I do think it's important with Sean, with even our producer, Loogie, who's a diehard Knick fan, with Tiki, who brings a great credibility with the New York Giants, that we have the ability to let everyone realize that no matter what team's on a run, you're being represented. And we have that because I am the Met fan. Tiki and Sean are Yankee fans. They're Giant fans. I'm a Jet fan. With the Rangers, you just explained it. I'm an Islander fan. So it's tough in this town. It's very different than these other cities like Pittsburgh, where it's just like everybody roots for the same team. Yeah. Philadelphia. It's easy because everyone's together. We're not like that in New York. And it makes doing a sports talk show really challenging because you bring up fair critiques, right? You hate the Knicks. You're right. I do. But would you want me to lie to you and say, ooh, yay, for the city, for the station? I could never do that.
Well, let me ask you this.
You'd see right through it.
Well, sure, but let me ask you this. Do you think that there's some merit to the statement that the Knicks winning, had they continued their run, would have been good for you and the show? Because then there's something to talk about. Like, you want those runs to continue because that's exciting and people are calling you up and it's sparking good conversation. Yes. Like the Knicks going out, it's dead, it's over.
Okay.
Now we're on to baseball.
You are correct. What does that mean? Am I supposed to root for them just because it's good for me and my job? You don't know my fandom well.
No, I mean, trust me, I do. But don't you, as a professional on the radio, also think that there is some good that comes from the team staying alive?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
But also, like, you have to understand from working in radio, like, what's also good for him is when they lose and he gets to just go off on them losing.
Yeah, yes, but that only lasts a day. He's right. Like, you're right about what you're saying, I guess, and this is what makes me sick. Like, I admit this. I am a sick man at 40 years old. I would rather be happy, and I'm happy when my teams win and certain teams lose. So if your declarative statement is, hey, Evan, isn't it better for your show and the radio station when the Knicks go on a run? 100%.
Yeah.
But then the follow-up is, so why don't you root for them? And my answer is because I'd rather be happy. Because when I go home on a Tuesday night, I want them gone. I want them out. And I also have to like tell myself, you know what? If we're going to do the best show possible, it doesn't matter. If we can be as entertaining as possible, it won't matter at the end of the day. So this is my problem. It's because you're right. I should be a better teammate and a better radio host and say, yay, let's go Knicks. It's better for me. That's selfish. I'm not selfish. Or maybe I am.
No, I think you are. That's the definition. I think it's the opposite.
Don't you also watch wrestling, right?
Oh, I love pro wrestling.
How do you it's hard for me to watch like there's three WWE shows.
Right.
There's 3 AEW shows.
Right.
Then there's all these indie shows, and you watch every sport. How do you do that?
How do I do that? DVR is my friend, and not sleeping at night is my friend.
How much of Raw do you usually skip through?
Raw and SmackDown I skip through. AEW I just haven't watched a lot recently.
I can't even turn it on anymore.
Yeah,
so
once MJF lost the title, I kind of lost a little bit of interest. So really I skimmed through, but my oldest son loves professional wrestling. So on Friday nights, he wants to watch SmackDown and then ask me what happened on Raw. But, you know, I skimmed through it. Like, I've always been a wrestling fan, but based on how good the shows are, I'll go really fast. Or sometimes I'll watch the whole thing. Obviously, WrestleMania season, man, you know, freaking locked in for every minute.
Rumble to Mania is great. I love SummerSlam. I think weirdly I go like Mania and Rumble kind of teeter-totter for me because Rumble's so much fun. Like, you have friends who don't even watch. They might come over to your place and watch with you.
And they're leading to something big, which is WrestleMania. Yeah. They seem to always deliver.
Where is it this year?
This
Vegas.
year, Vegas.
Really?
And then Indianapolis.
It's a great city.
Yeah.
It's a great city.
All the major shows are in Indianapolis.
Yeah, they just announced that.
It's a great convention city. I went to IU, so I've spent a lot of time in Indiana.
So what do you think about the Netflix news that they're going to be it's going to be a 2-hour Raw now?
I think that's big, man. 3 hours was way too long.
Awful, and it was a bad show.
Yeah.
2 hours commercial free for the most part.
Perfect.
I think we're entering a really new, we're already in a great era of wrestling. I think we're going to go to another level even higher because there's going to be less restrictions on Netflix.
Yep.
Matches are going to be able to breathe.
Yep.
That long form storytelling is already coming back. I am so excited with the way that
they're in a good
industry.
place. I mean, Triple H knows how to run a wrestling organization. Who knew? It was time for the old man to go away. And, you know, he deserves to go away, obviously. Yeah. But, yeah, wrestling's in a good place right now.
Now, have you noticed there's a lot of Mets and wrestling fans?
There's a lot of everything in wrestling fans.
So this is the weird thing, though. Mets specifically. We had LA Knight come out to a game last year.
Right.
He threw out the
first
pitch.
Were you here that night?
I don't remember.
Oh, you would have loved it. We had him.
I think I may have been, actually.
He did a whole thing, with Mike Janela, in-game host.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I was.
Yeah.
The problem is when I go to a lot of games, I can't get here until like as the first pitch is being thrown because of when I'm on the radio. So I missed the national anthem. I missed the first pitch. I missed a lot of stuff. But I do remember that now with LA Knight.
So we announced he was coming about a week or two before.
Yeah, it was like 10 days or so.
And that night, a ton of wrestling fans showed up.
Wow.
Not to meet. There was no meet and greet that night with LA Knight. They just came out to see LA Knight.
They just wanted to scream, yeah.
I had never heard of it. Very nice man, by the way. Very nice man.
Really fun. But there's. I think. Well, I mean, you know, New York is a big wrestling city.
Oh yeah.
I think Mets fans just relate to wrestling because I think our history is related to a lot of storytelling. I mean, like, how do you get past a history where we've only won two World Series without like looking back and just remembering the good times?
Even though pro wrestling is not a sport, it feels like a sport.
Yeah.
In our brain, we treat it as such. So I think there is a lot of crossover between sports fans in general and people that like pro wrestling.
Did you? Were you here last year when? Have you noticed the blind resume game we play during games?
Love it.
Okay, you do love it.
Yeah,
that's him.
Okay, very nice. I appreciate that.
Do you get it most of the time?
I'd say like a decent amount. Yeah.
You got to pick a game that you just want to stump them.
Oh, I'll stump the shit out of you.
I love it, though. I have grown to love the games in between half innings.
Yeah.
So were you here when we did Rico Bronia, and one of the clues was a prominent WFAN radio host has a podcast named after me?
I wasn't, but I got a ton of like pictures sent to me.
Damn, you weren't here that night? I told my boss, I'm like, I really hope he's going to be here tonight. I hope he notices.
I know, that was the other key, like, because sometimes I'm looking down, you know, sometimes I'm
right. Yeah.
So I don't catch everything, but I do really appreciate, especially for my kids, like the in-game breaks. But trust me, no one was going to let me forget that. I got a lot of messages about it, so I was honored by that. Thank you.
All right, it's the middle of the fourth inning. Now we have each other's contact. You can tell me, hey, I got that one a couple nights ago, or hey, you got me. You got me good.
Next time you come on, would you do Mets trivia versus John?
Sure, why not?
I mean, there's like 3 people in the world who I think that, and I guess I'm tooting my own horn here. Maybe you can explain to him my deal.
Oh, he's like he has total recall.
Keep it PG.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna say, but like he's
about to.
He's very good.
He's very his total recall. Like this guy, literally the things he says to people that he's like, how do you not know this? It's crazy.
Like, who started that the Cliff Floyd game for the Mets against the Angels? Do you remember?
Jeez, 2005.
Yeah.
It's going to be a pure guess. I'm going to think about the rotation, and I'm just going to give you a pure guess. 2005. I'm going to go with Steve Traxler.
Kazishi.
See, I wouldn't have gotten that. How do you remember that? Because you were at the game?
I wasn't at the game. No, I was at a graduation party that night, but I don't know. I mean, I just have.
That's pretty good. Then he'll kick my ass.
He did
Because I don't think I'd remember that stuff.
He did David Wright trivia versus David Wright
and you beat him?
I beat the shit out of him. But I mean, I also grew up like admiring David Wright.
Well, you know what's interesting about that? We have a game sometimes we play randomly. How much does Tiki know about Tiki?
Yes.
And he forgets a lot of stuff about his career. Now, there's certain things that like are extra special to him that maybe we don't think of because it's more of a personal thing. But in general, like Sean Morash, who's a Giant fan, can beat him in what does Tiki know about Tiki. So I think with certain athletes, like it's interesting to see what they actually remember about themselves.
Yeah, but no, we'll do it one day.
You'll be a betting favorite in that matchup. I'm already as soon as he got the Kazi, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be the underdog. I'll still do it. I got nothing to lose, but I think you're going to be like minus 250.
Well, I'm a big favorite, but I mean, there are very few guys like you. I grew up listening to you and Joe. And I've always respected the hell out of you and your knowledge. And like, look, there are some guys on that station and other stations and podcasts are all over the place now. We have one.
This right here. It's Meet at the Apple. Do you get the name, by the way, of Meet at the Apple?
Yeah, Meet at the Apple. The Apple's in front of the stadium.
Yeah.
So let's meet at the Apple.
You wouldn't believe how many people think it's the Apple inside the building.
No.
Yeah,
Doesn't
people
make
don't
sense.
get it.
You can't meet at the Apple inside the building. Though I think this Apple used to be inside the building.
It is the Apple.
That was the
Fouché.
original one.
But it was in the bullpen club, I think, at first.
Yes, it was.
And
When
then
the
they moved
stadium
it.
first moved here.
Oh, that's in 09,
I've
right?
told you that. I've said that on the podcast.
It was back there.
It was in the.
When did they put it out in front?
It was when they changed the bullpen area. So remember the bullpens used to be parallel to that area.
Sure.
They were next to each other. They changed everything and then they moved it outside. I want to say 11 or 11. I want to say 11.
It was a good decision.
Yeah.
I like that being like a meeting point. Now, obviously, you got the Seaver statue too, which is great.
And
but
the Grimace statues.
Yeah. You're right.
Got the Queen's crew out there. You got a whole lot going on out there.
Yes.
But I was saying, I mean, you're definitely one of the voices in New York sports radio.
I appreciate that.
You get it. You don't get overly emotional. I love sometimes. No, not really. I don't think you ever let your emotions cloud your judgment or, just like speaking truth to what's happening. But do you yell at games? Like, do you yell at the field? Like, get out the field, pull them already.
Not really.
You can't, right? Because like
I
you're a
wouldn't-
known.
yeah.
You're
It's
a known
not even
person.
I can't. I don't think I ever did. I think as a fan, I'm very
Not even as a kid.
I'm very quiet unless something big happens. Like there are certain things. Like the time I really lost my mind, and it's in the book, is at Yankee Stadium when Roger threw the bat, where I got up and mother effed him. And my dad was like, you can get killed right now. You're at Yankee Stadium, mother effing Roger Clemens.
In the World Series.
In the World Series, and Yankee fans apologized to me.
Really?
Yeah, they said, he's not ours. That was effed up. Sorry about that. He's steroided out or whatever they said at the time. I don't even remember, but I lost my mind for that. So there are certain moments where I get crazy, but for the most part, I'm calm and subdued. Everything's in my head.
Are you a big cheerer?
Am I a big cheer? I'm a big applause guy. I'll give a nice little. I'm not a booer.
Are you
I
a
never
Let's Go
boo.
Metzer?
When my kids are around, because I'm trying to inspire them.
Yeah, but
like tonight, the first game of the Subway Series with my dad, probably not. I sit there with my scorecard and I watch and I observe, and all the emotions are in my head.
I'll tell you the one time I ever lost my shit at a game, and like security was like, "You need to calm down." I can't remember the specific game, but it was Guillermo Mota.
Which collapse was this?
Yeah, it was. This was 08. Yeah, this was at Shea in 08. Or was it 09? I think it had to be 08.
He wasn't on the team in 09. He was gone.
Then it was
by that
08.
point.
And I was in high school. Not even drinking or anything. I was in high school and like just at a game, and I was on the peak of my lungs. Like it was towards the end of the season, and a security guard was like, "Hey man, you gotta stop right now." And like honestly, working, like even before I started working here, even just being like growing up a little, like booing. You bought your tickets, you could do whatever you want, but like booing at your own team is just lame.
Yeah, I get why people do it. I've done it one time, and it was actually for Guillermo Mota, and it was for the stupidest reason. It's when he came back from the steroid stuff, and I'm like, really? Am I being holier than thou that I'm booing him because he got busted for PEDs? And I think that's like literally the only time I've ever booed my own player.
It's funny that you both have Mota.
What about
Here's
you?
the thing.
When did you scream at Mota?
Mota was behind the eight ball because of the whole Piazza thing.
That's
you
right.
know, when he comes to the
When he
Mets,
chased him.
Yeah, Mets fans already had a problem with Mota, and in Game 2 of the LCS,
he blew it.
That was the one that got away.
Is that when you
Scott
screamed?
Spezio play,
I wasn't at that game, but yes, Sean
the
Green
TV?
should have had that ball.
He
by the
should
way.
have, I
Sean
agree.
Green should have had that
Yep.
ball.
You scream at the TV?
Do I scream
Just
at the TV?
bond with us. Just lie.
No, I'm thinking. I asked the question because I feel like when you're a huge fan, and I feel like you kind of don't get that crazy verbally, like inside. You know, like you get hot and you're just like, you start to sweat in those big moments.
I'm to myself.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think of some of the biggest moments when Durant hit the game tying 3 against the Bucks.
You probably didn't say boo, right?
Didn't
or
say a
peep.
word. I went like this, just put my head down, like was kind of praying, I guess.
Are we not going to count when you abandoned your friend at Yankee Stadium?
That I lost my mind on. Yeah, that's one. But I was more screaming at, like, and it was also over. And I was screaming at the situation. Like, I can't believe this. I did drop an F-bomb very loudly when Familia gave up the quick pitch home run in the World Series in Game 1. That one, my wife got scared. Because remember how late at night that was, too.
I was at McFadden's on 42nd Street, and I was with my friend who's a lifelong Rays fan. And right before he put his hand on my shoulder, he said, "Hey, man, at least your team, no matter what, is going to win one game in the World Series."
Oh.
And then that happened literally seconds later.
That World Series felt like 2000 all over again. Everything about it. Blowing Game 1 in the
Game
ninth
4
inning.
was the worst. Dude, I cried. And this is going to sound pathetic. You know, I had a job at this point already. It was Halloween night, as you know, October 31st.
Yeah.
My wife drags me out to the city. She gets me this stupid, we were married at the time, stupid like Superman costume. I'm like, Shauna, this is a bad idea. Because if they lose this game, like, you know, they're down 3-1. It's over. And they're winning the game. Conforto hits 2 home runs against, you know, one against the lefty. I think Chris Young started that night for the Royals. And, you know, Murphy botches the ball and the Mets blow it in the 8th inning.
Underrated killer game, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's underrated because people think of Game 5 and Game 1 before that, but Game 4 was an
You
absolute
tied that
killer.
game with Harvey on Game 5, and then you're going back with Syndergaard and DeGrom Game 6 and 7.
That's the worst game of my life I've been to.
I literally cried in public.
Yeah.
I literally cried in public.
That and 08 are the two like in-person games I went to that just really destroyed me. It's those two.
No, I feel it. 15 was tough, and my wife jinxed the whole thing too because when
What'd you do?
Harvey came out, I brought my wife to the game, bought an extra ticket, so my dad was there, my wife's there, Game 5 of the World Series, and going into the 9th inning, we had already bought tickets to go to Kansas City. We had to do it well in advance, and she looks at me and says, "Well, we're gonna get to go to Kansas City." And I said, "Are you kidding me?"
Oh, no.
And she's like, "What'd I do?" I said, "We haven't won the game yet. You can't talk about, what are you picking out barbecue places too on your phone? Like, no, no." And she forever apologized for that.
So the next time the Mets are in the World Series, I guess just don't book the trip or just ask her to keep
Just pay those last-minute fees.
I'll book the trip because I didn't think that was I did that like at the beginning. It's more she can't say anything.
Yeah.
Like I don't look at the booking of the trip as the jinx. I look at it as you can't say, "Oh, we're going to Kansas City."
So I was working at Sirius during 2015, and I just started. So I was working like BS part-time hours. It was after my internship. I interned with Ron and Fez.
Right.
And then I was working part-time for Doctor Radio, which was 6 a.m. at NYU Langone. And World Series is happening. I'm wearing my Met stuff every day. And I say to my boss who schedules me, because like it's weird hours, I just go, "I'm not saying anything, but like, I just like, please be aware of the schedule next week." And I wasn't saying like, I didn't say anything about a parade or anything, but I was like,
Oh, man.
I need you to know, you need to pay attention to the schedule because like, if I can't be here, I can't be here.
Right, yeah.
But I didn't say it, but I was like, don't you dare.
I don't think you qualify as a jinx.
Thank you.
It's clearly my wife's fault. Don't worry.
Thank you.
You know who screwed the Mets that year?
Where do I begin?
The Houston Astros screwed the Mets that year.
Because they blew that series
Game
lead.
4.
Yeah.
They were on the verge. Tony Sipp
Yep.
came in that game. I think 8th inning. They were up by a couple runs, and the Royals exploded, and they go back and they win Game 5.
Yep.
The Houston Astros
No, you're right.
screwed the Mets.
They had them beat.
Let me ask you one more question. Do you get the National League pennant shirt, or do you hold out?
I get the National League pennant shirt. We
Come
don't get
on,
them a lot.
Evan.
Yeah, we don't get
I
them a
didn't
lot.
Come on,
I will say,
Evan.
I regret that.
You can get it after.
No,
for half price.
That year, you know what? No, I'll agree with that. But that year, I did not buy a single World Series patch hat because I was so bitter. I did not buy any playoff merch that year. And looking back, I wish I did have one Mets World Series hat.
Well, part of why I do it is that, and I'll never forget it, when they won the pennant, and we had a long layoff because it was a sweep of Chicago.
Right.
I biked to like the closest sporting goods shop so I can get it immediately because I just wanted to wear it. So it wasn't even for the future. It was in that week, in those few days, I want to revel in the fact
Right.
that we're the champions of the National League. Now, do I wear it all the time now? Not necessarily, but I yes, because we don't have a lot of these. I don't have a lot of shirts honoring championships. Like, what the hell do I have as a Mets, Nets, Jets fan? I don't have much. And so when they win something, yeah.
Why'd you leave at the Islanders?
Because the Islanders, in fairness, are like my fourth team, and I don't give them that attention.
You had
that I
milk
do.
poured over you for the Islanders.
Well, because I'm an Islander fan, and when they're in the playoffs, I watch them. But it's a disservice to put them in the same breath.
Okay.
Because I watch every Nets game. I
Okay.
watch every Mets game. Obviously, I watch every Jets game. I think it's impossible to do that with hockey and basketball. I just don't know how anybody could be a die-hard fan of both. So I'm an Islander fan, absolutely. I go to games. I watch them in the playoffs. But it wouldn't be fair to the true diehard Islander fan to put them in that same breath because I don't live and die every period the way I do the Nets, Mets, and Jets. And that's why I say that.
It sucks like hearing the first part of like going to Modell's or whatever to go get your shirt.
I miss
like,
it
where
so
do
much.
we go now?
I know, you got to go to Amazon or
When
something.
the Giants won the Super Bowl in 07.
I guess I'll drive to Long Island and go to Dick's
Right.
Sporting Goods. Like,
The Giants won the Super Bowl in 07. If you recall, it was right around the time the Mets got Johan.
yeah.
Right.
And the press conference was happening, I think, that Monday. And Modell's had gotten its shipment of Johan Santana Mets shirts. I'm from Marlboro, New Jersey. There was a Modell's in Manalapan. So the Giants winning meant Modell's opened a few hours earlier because they had the Giants Super Bowl stuff
Wow.
on the shelves.
Wow.
And before school, I went to Modell's and the entire store was buying Giants shit. And there I am getting my Johan
There you
Santana
go.
t-shirt.
Beautiful.
Hey, Evan Roberts' book, The Mets Bible. It's available now wherever you get your books. That's Amazon. That's Barnes and Nobles.
Those still around?
Barnes and Nobles is doing well.
Still around.
They've changed their whole. I've just watched a YouTube documentary about it. They've changed their whole business model. They're now modeling the small businesses they put out of work. So now they're
I
doing
like
smaller
it.
shops, and they're having the bookkeepers do
Nice.
it. But go to one of those new Barnes and Nobles, or go to Amazon, wherever Evan wants you to. Where's
You
the
got any
best one?
signings coming up?
Do you have a personal website where people
No,
can get
just
it?
go to Amazon or go to any bookstore.
Are you
and
doing
buy it.
signings?
I did a few when a book first came out.
Okay.
I don't have any schedule, but you never know. Whenever
right.
they call me to tell me to do it, I do it.
Mets Bible, get it. And this podcast, Meet at the Apple, is available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We're also available on the Mets YouTube page. You can follow me on Twitter at Vito F. Khaleesi, John at JMB9191. Evan, thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Did you have a good time?
Appreciate it. I had a great
Did
time.
it live
I
up to what
appreciate
you
it.
thought it would be?
It lived up. It exceeded it. It was a wonderful experience.
Do you want to do what Mike did for us?
Uh-oh, what did he do?
Mike held this and gave us a promo for our podcast.
Oh, dude, you got to see it.
Meet at the Apple, okay? You better watch it, all right? Or else you're a freaking loser.
Oh, man. Do you listen to this podcast still?
Once in a while.
Me too.
I like to check in.
Good.
See you guys. Thank you.